It's the Mixed Martial Arts Hour with
the Mixed Martial Arts Hour back in your life on this Monday, June 1st, 2015. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel Helwani inside our New York City studio. I am happy to be inside. It is raining outside, so it's good to be inside here. The beginning of June, start of my favorite 2-month stretch of the calendar, June and July. July, the best month of the year, as I think I've mentioned many times before on this show. It's the only month of the year as a kid where you don't have school, unless you're one of those kids who has to go to summer school, and, well, then we got other problems. But you gotta love June and July. Everyone's in a good mood. Everyone's feeling good about themselves. Typically, the weather is very nice. Not this particular Monday, but typically that is the case, and there are a lot of good fights to be had. For example, this past Saturday in Goiânia, Brazil, a very small crowd apparently attended the event, but what a great main event. The return of Carlos Condit. He was successful in defeating Thiago Alves, as violent as ever. Wow, that second round, those elbows, you couldn't even tell that it was an elbow at first. It just looked like a punch. It was so quick. It was quicker, but reminiscent of the Chris Weidman, Mark Munoz knockout. And he is right back in there, right back in the mix. You have to wonder, if Rory McDonald wins, does he get a title shot? If Rory McDonald loses, you'd have to think we'll finally get that rematch. It's more relevant now than it has been the last couple of years. A great return for Carlos Condit. He's been gone for around 15 months. Also, Charles Oliveira looking very good against Nick Lentz, who looked completely different. Looked like a hipster from Williamsburg, but that was a fun fight as well. So we have a lot to discuss. Big weekend coming up. World Series of Fighting in action. UFC, of course, back in action, this time in New Orleans. So much to discuss as always. We've got a loaded show, so let's get into the rundown. 3:30, we'll answer your questions and comments. Talk about them. You know the drill. Hashtag DMMA Hour. Leave a question or comment in the comment section below. 3:25, we're going inside the vault. 3:05, we're going to talk to Betch Correia, who's, of course, preparing to fight Ronda Rousey August 1st at UFC 190, but she's gotten herself into some trouble as of late. Well, at least some heat. That's not all we want to talk to her about. First time she's on the show. Interesting character. She picked a fight with Ronda Rousey. She's getting it in her home country. I'm looking forward to having her on at 3:05. 2:45, we're going to talk to Uriah Faber, ask him what's next. Remember, it was last month in May. He lost to Frankie Edgar. Where does he go from here? What happened in Manila? All that and much more. Canadian Chris Horodecki stops by at 2:25 to talk about his World Series of Fighting 21 featherweight title fight against Lance Palmer. That is this Friday at where is it? It's in Alberta, and it's on NBCSN. Chris Horodecki, an OG, still looks like he's 12. But a good Canadian boy. 2:05, we'll have Ally Quint on the show. You probably could have predicted this one after what Bobby Green had to say about both him and his team last week on the show. A lot of you writing in, giving us props for that one. I appreciate it very much. Didn't really have to do much, to be honest. Just let him speak. Always appreciate Bobby Green. He is a colorful character. He is one that keeps you on your toes, and I didn't really mind anything that he brought to the table. So we'll have Ally Quint on at 2:05 to respond. Jason High returns to talk about a very interesting anniversary. This one has flown under the radar, but it is approaching. It is actually next Sunday, this coming Sunday. Jason High, remember him? You haven't heard much of him over the past 365 days, or I should say 329 days. 29? What horrible math. 359 days. Yeah, that's right. But he returns at 1:45. And then at 1:25, we'll talk to Joe Soto, who we haven't heard from since UFC 177. He stepped up on short notice to fight TJ Dillashaw for the belt. Remember, short notice, that's not even being fair. 24 hours notice to fight TJ for the belt. He lost. Spirited affair. Replaced Renan Barão. He returns this Saturday in New Orleans. But first, let us go to the Skype machine First guest of the day has a very big fight this Saturday in New Orleans. He is fighting big Ben Rothwell. It has been quite some time since we had Matt Mitrione on the program. And before I get to Matt Mitrione, I do have to remind you that this episode of the MMA Hour is being presented by NOS. Do something epic. Go make your mark on the world. A hashtag with this NOS I will. Follow them on Twitter at NOS Energy Drink. How about that, Matt? I see your chin and that wonderful T-shirt. I don't see your face. I don't see those baby greens. Are they green or blue? There they are.
They're blue.
They're blue.
I can't believe it. Shows up on mine. There must be something wrong. What's up, little buddy? How you doing?
How are you? How about that? We got a sponsor. We're all grown up.
It's about time, man. I'll hold my phone instead. It's good, buddy. What's going on?
Not much. What happened to the hair? You know, I was thinking that you were just playing possum and you were going to keep the hair. I liked it long.
Well, I tell you what, man. My grays started showing up a little bit too much, and it was just, had to get rid of it. Plus, like every time I was so long, it was like down to my mid nose.
I liked it.
So every time I'd spar, it'd get in my eyes and be all over the place. So
it brought out your boyish charm.
Well, I've got plenty of of horrible long hair pictures on the internet, so I'm good with them.
Now, where are we right now? Are we in your home? Is this where we are?
I just bought a new home. This is my new home.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
You're all grown up as well.
I'm sorry, what, buddy?
You're all grown up as well. You're buying homes.
I am. That's what I do. I buy them for a little bit, live in them, then rent them out. I'm trying to set up my retirement fund since the UFC doesn't give it to us.
Oh my! Are we gonna start? Are we starting like okay? So since you brought it up, where do we stand? When this Reebok thing came out, you were the most vocal one right off the bat, and some were wondering what would happen, and then you posted on Twitter not that long afterwards that you actually got a call from Dana White, right?
I did. I got a call from him.
Okay, so let's.
Nothing was done.
What's that?
Nothing got settled, like nothing happened out of it, but he still called. And it was almost as if he was talking to somebody else, like he was dictating notes to somebody else saying, okay, he's losing, X amount per fight, blah, 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 like kind of taking notes on it. And nothing happened of it. And then I had a little something going on. So I had to talk to him about a little bit more technical stuff afterwards. So I didn't end up closing the conversation as in to ask like, okay, well, now that you know how much I'm losing per fight, how are you guys going to make this right? What's going to happen with it? So I didn't get a chance to close on the conversation, but nothing's happened since. But I still at least had a conversation with them.
So
what?
The deal hasn't kicked in then. It hasn't kicked in yet. It kicks in next month. Are you going out with a bang, or have people jumped ship because they know it's coming? People meaning sponsors.
I've had two companies jump ship, and I just signed a pretty good sponsor, Wingstop. Chicken wing joint, 750 stores nationwide. I just signed them. They're going to be one of my primary sponsors this camp, and they've been great to me, man. They've actually been really good, and I think there's a chance that might go on after the UFC puts it in effect. But I think that there's one of the biggest things that I'm slightly bothered by when it comes down to Dana's positioning of this deal is that he says that it's just like the NFL and Major League Baseball and everybody else. But the thing is, those are employer-employee relationships. Those aren't 1099s and independent contractors. I mean, this is him pulling this deal is like the PGA trying to pull this deal, and that's not the case. That's not realistic. And it really puts it's great window dressing on his part, and I understand why he's doing it because it takes a lot of pressure off of that. But I don't think it's an accurate representation of what's really going on.
Right, and you would know a lot about that because you played in the NFL. You know how that relationship goes. Do you feel like it's time that you guys have some sort of representative who sits down? It's not just with this. It's as much as we may applaud the drug testing stuff. In other sports, that's a conversation that's had between both sides, right? I mean, they don't just come to the MLB players and say, okay, this is what you have to adhere to. That's a conversation that's same with the NFL. Do you feel like it's high time that the sport, or maybe just the organization that is the UFC, adopts that as well?
I don't know really, it's a totally different conversation with all that, because with the CBA and everything else, collective bargaining agreement and everybody else and unions and associations, that's highly complicated stuff. And they as in the UFC have done an effective job of taking care of people where they need to be taken care of, enough to the point where nobody's going to shout out the emperor's not wearing any clothing. So they've done an effective job as far as keeping us, not necessarily keeping us from teaming up with each other. And by them kind of limiting clothing sponsors and limiting some other stuff, when they could have easily just put in a non-compete, like they could have easily, when Affliction came out, started the fight promotion, and they said that they were so pissed because Affliction built their name on the UFC's back. Well, all they had to do, in theory, was just put a non-compete in for 5 years. If you're going to advertise in the UFC, put a non-compete in for 5, 6, 10 years or whatever else, and then that would have effectively eliminated that concern. But when they did that, they drastically affected our sponsorship money, which means that we became more reliant upon UFC's fight money. And so it really it made it so we don't have extra cushion in order to be like, you know what, the hell with it. This whole card will sit out because we made so much money our last time. Because remember, when I first got in, if you were making 1-to-1, like one times or the same amount in sponsorship money as you were to your fight purse, you were doing poorly. I mean, if you were doing 2 times or 3 times or better, then that's how you really knew where you were at with name value and worth. And so they effectively took that away from us. And so they took a lot of disposable income away until we became so much reliant on their purses that it made it almost impossible for us to band together and say, look, we can sit out this card, we can do whatever else. Now, I don't think that would ever happen really because, and a lot of times people say that it's the top 5 that need to sit out in every weight class, right? Like they need the Ronda Rouseys and the Jose Aldos, who's actually speaking out,
sure,
and a bunch of other people. They need those people to bail out. Well, I don't necessarily think that's the case. If something like that ever happened, like where an association, right, were to get, I think it's an association. I can't remember what the word is. It's not association, but because it can't be union, right? Because union is employer-employee relationship,
right?
So anyways, if something were to ever start up, it would be, instead of being the top 5, it would be the depth of the purse, because the top 5 people get taken care of relatively well in every weight class, I would assume. But for everybody else, if you take away 6 through 20, 6 through 15, then there goes the heart of their order, and there goes a lot of their lineups and their cards. So I think that would probably be the answer, but I don't think that'll ever happen. I'd be surprised.
You mentioned Aldo. So clearly you have read his comments, which are all over the place today. What do you make of what he just said?
I think he's very accurate. I think he's highly accurate. And I think that he's right. And I think he's got huge stones to say it. He's the first champion to come out and say it, the first highly paid guy, which I'm assuming he's highly paid because nobody's beating him. The dude's a monster.
Right.
So I think he has huge stones, and I think he's doing it for the greater good, which I don't. And it's not the same greater good as the Reebok deal, I think that it takes huge stones on his part, and I respect him a lot for doing it, for sure. Especially because he has a lot to lose, but he also knows that I think he probably feels that they can't really do that much to him because he's the man, and he knows that.
Speaking of huge stones, I mean, at the end of the day, it does take huge stones to speak out about something like this in the public sphere, right? And that's what you did right off the bat. You didn't follow anyone's lead. I mean, you were pretty quick to judge this. At some point, were you thinking like, you know what, maybe this isn't the smartest thing for me to do career-wise? I could be shooting myself in the foot. I mean, you're on a roll, and you're very much an important player in the heavyweight division, but you never know how things can be perceived, especially through Twitter, written, social media, all that stuff. Did you think twice at all about being openly critical of this deal when it was first announced?
No, I didn't, to be honest. And I'll tell you why, because the way I was raised by my mother and my father is that if I see something I don't agree in, I speak out on it. And sometimes I'm an example of where keeping it real goes wrong. But I also, I do my very best to live my life as being as open, as honest as I can. And if I see something I don't agree with, I'll typically say something like, that's not necessarily the case. I don't believe in that so much. So maybe that gets me in trouble sometimes, but that also lets me sleep at night because at least I express my genuine opinion and people will know exactly where I stand.
And when it's
typically like if you're going to get punished by the UFC, right, they're going to try to give you a bad fight for you, right? So that way you'll get smoked and you'll look terrible and you'll lose your next fight or whatever else, right? Like that's at least in my school of thought, that's like if you do something and you get in bad grace with the UFC, then you'll get a bad matchup, if that's the case, I feel like right now I'm the best fighter in the world. I feel like, so I don't think there's a bad matchup I could get. So, and I think I'd be very prepared for anybody that I was come across.
period, regardless of weight class? Best in the world?
I feel like I'm really damn good right now. I feel like I've been really good for the last little bit,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm only getting better. Like this camp, all my training partners, my coaches, even Chris, who's my mentor, but he's extremely honest with me. They're like, look, dude, you look better than you've ever looked before. Takedown defense, striking, creativity-wise, grappling, transitioning, everything. I feel like I'm better than I've ever been. I'm not brand new. I'm not new improved.
Sure.
I've just gotten better overall every single time.
Is there a secret to this change, or is it just you've just been in the game now and you're learning what it takes to become the best that you can be?
I think that's probably it. There's not a secret for sure, because I'm still doing the exact same things I've always done. I just feel like I think maybe since my Brendan fight, I think hopefully I made my last really stupid decision in the middle of a fight, and now I'm just kind of fighting, smarter, not necessarily safer, just fighting smarter. I know what I'm doing a little bit better, and I feel like I've finally gotten to a point where I can allow my athleticism to be my guide, and then the rest of my body and my ability follows after that.
Way back when you fought Czech Congo, co-main event, remember that card, Nick Diaz, BJ Penn? Yeah. I was telling everyone, Matt Mitrione in a year will be fighting for the belt. Well, you made me sound dumb then, but maybe it's going to come to fruition now. Maybe I was right all along. I just had the foresight to know that this was coming.
I feel that there's not many people in the world that can beat me on any given day. I feel like I can beat anybody in the world. And with my training partners, with Coach Henry, with Coach Greg Jones down in Florida, and honestly with Glenn Robinson, that allows me to go down there and train and work with the Black Zillions and get better. And Coach Neil Melanson came down with the Black Zillions and worked for a little while, and I made sure I got down there and did time with him and Struve and Anthony Johnson and Rashad and and Rico Verhoeven, just all these dudes, man. I've just been fortunate, man, where all these people we all worked hard and worked at the same tempo, and we all got better.
How many steps in between Ben Rothwell, who you fight on Saturday, co-main event? How many steps between him and, say, Cain Velasquez, in your opinion?
Well, I can answer that with we talking about like after I beat Ben, how many fights would be there until I get
in
the
your
fight
mind?
Cain, or are you talking?
I'm sure you think about this, right?
No, actually, I have not. Genuinely, I have not at all. Because I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you how I'd answer that question if you were asking ability wise, and then I'll answer the question as to why I haven't thought that.
Okay.
So ability wise, between Cain and Ben, Cain didn't stop Ben. The fight got stopped, but Ben was actually getting up against the wall when the referee stopped that fight. Ben is durable as all hell. I don't think he's ever been knocked out. And the dude, he had a belt in another organization. He's a monster on all levels. He's not great at anything, but he's not bad at anything either. And he's heady. He's been around long enough where he knows what to do and how to handle himself in situations. And when he gets put in a situation where he's on Queer Street or he's it's
an old term. I'll give you a pass on that one, I guess.
I appreciate it. Where he gets knocked a little bit funny, right? And he's doing the silly dance. That if he gets put in that situation, he becomes highly aggressive, which is kind of unusual. Where most people kind of fall back and kind of wait for them to kind of catch themselves. He'll become even more aggressive, charge forwards, and start attacking. And I think that shows how heady he is and how long he's been in the game, where he knows his body well enough where he can do something like that. I would think that. So that's my answer between him and Cain. I don't think there's a huge difference there because, like I said, Cain didn't stop him, and that's one of the guys that Cain didn't stop as far as just putting hands on him and getting after him the whole way. And as far as why I haven't thought forwards as far as after I beat Ben, because I do believe I'll beat him, but Ben is so good at what he does that if I actually do take the time to look forwards past him, that's when I'll get my ass kicked.
Okay.
And I think I'm good enough not to. But I feel that I respect Ben's abilities enough where I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't disrespect him.
I really think, not to look ahead, but I really think that considering how your last few fights have gone, the momentum you've built, you're a popular guy, all that stuff, that you can really jump into that conversation come Saturday night. I personally think Andrei Arlovski deserves, a shot at the title given what he did in his last fight, and also, his resume. Just think it makes business sense to put him in that spot. But there are a couple of guys in there who need dance partners, and I feel like you can really, as far as the top guys, I think you're right in that discussion if you win, especially impressively on Saturday.
I agree. I think that there's some really good names out there right now that either for Ben or myself, whoever wins this, and especially if it's very convincingly and looks good, that either one of us two can start making a whole lot of noise.
And you want to keep doing this? I mean, after this is done, you're complaining about the money and the money that you're losing. Does it make sense for you to continue being an MMA fighter after this?
Man, that's an interesting question. It depends on my renegotiations. It depends on how, because after this fight, I have one fight left on my contract.
Okay.
And if the UFC wants to re-sign me, then we'll see what they come up with, what they offer. If not, then there's other conversations to be had, I'm sure. But I'm a fortunate guy. I have a mouthpiece. I'm articulate, and I've never left myself to be a man without options. And in the NFL, that's the most dangerous thing as a man with options. So I learned a lesson in my life. And if the UFC decides they don't want me, and no other fight organization wants me or whatever else, or I decide I've had enough, or the money's not right, then I'll go on and do something else. And I'll become a firefighter for Purdue University that doesn't have an age limit, and I'll be home all the time for my kids. I mean, I don't need to be a celebrity in my life. I don't fight to be famous. I fight to pay bills. And as long as I can do that and support my family, I couldn't care less what I do.
Do you want to resign with the UFC?
Yeah, the UFC's been good to me, man. It's been really good to me. And I don't have many conversations with Dana. I have more conversations with Joe Silva than I do with Dana. And I don't really talk to Lorenzo that often, but I enjoy it. It's the only organization I've ever fought in, so I don't want to go anywhere else. I don't want to experience something new, especially 13, 14 fights in. Why would I want to go somewhere else? But I mean, it's a business, and I'm not going to preclude myself from any other options just because I'm comfortable here.
And just curious, because you're talking about Joe Silva and negotiations. You're going to do this on your own, right? You don't have a manager anymore. Is that accurate?
I do not have a. Yes, that is correct.
Why did you decide to go that route?
Well, because I felt like with the UFC deal and the Reebok deal, I felt like there was no reason for it anymore. Plus, I felt that management. I felt management got too greedy. Whereas they wanted night bonuses. They wanted cuts of everything. They wanted, and it wasn't just on their. They're resting on their names and reputation and trying to claim that they're the ones that got you their bonuses or the night bonus, even if it wasn't like a performance bonus. It was like a night bonus, like a locker room bonus. They're trying to say that it was our hard work that got you here and got you there. That's not the case, man. And if you don't want to pay that out and you have an argument with them, then things get awkward and tense. I don't need to pay out 20% of my purse to somebody that, got me X amount of money in sponsorships when I'm the one who landed my biggest sponsors my last 2 and 3 fights. So I don't need that, and it's more my mouthpiece and my own name and brand that I've built versus I haven't had a marketing company or a management company build me. It's been me and my ignorance building my own self out.
Right. But now you're going to have to go into a negotiation for the first time alone, right? Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, but I have attorneys. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have legal counsel.
Okay.
That I'll address with, and they'll be highly abreast at the situation and what other contracts are,
right,
and the nuances of those contracts. I mean, I won't go into a contract negotiation unprepared. That's for sure.
Okay. Do you think that's going to be the norm in this sport? Do you think more guys are going to stop having managers? We've heard this, from a few now.
What was that? Chad Mendez is doing it too, right?
No,
or is it Joseph?
No, actually, Chad Mendez is super supportive of his team, but Joseph Benavidez, yes.
Okay, yeah. I think it makes more sense to, and there's not enough money in our game to split up, and sorry, that's my text alarm went off.
Oh.
I think that there's, I don't think there's enough money in our game to give out 10 and 20%, and there's not enough left over. The fact that we're 1099s, we have to pay out an exorbitant amount of Social Security and self-employment taxes. everything else on top of that, everything we do is a write-off. We have to be extremely careful with our money. We have to pay our quarterly taxes. We have to do so many different things. And then in addition to that, pay out 20% plus X plus Y plus Z plus tip your trainers and everything else. It just gets remarkably complicated. And I don't think that there's enough left over for them.
Okay, before I let you go, you're on a great streak, but even more fun is the fact that you've turned into, and I hope I'm not jinxing it here, you've turned into one of these don't blink guys. I mean, your fights are ending rather quickly. Again, foresight here, Mitrione minute, feel free to brand that. No problem, you can run with it. That's on the house. Are we looking to continue that? Is this something that you're striving for every time out these days?
So I'll give you a very honest answer here.
Okay.
It's awesome. I don't get paid by the minute, so that's awesome that my fights have been, not out of the first round lately. That's great. But and I'm not saying this just to be political at all. Totally legit. I expect me and Ben to go 15 minutes.
Okay.
I don't think that there's going to be anything easy from Ben at all. I feel like we know how he's going to come out and how he's going to attack us or attack me. But I think this will not be a quick and sexy fight. I think it'll be an ugly, grimy, absolute war. And not that I don't want one of those fights. Don't get me wrong. I don't want one of those fights. I don't want to get punched in the face a whole bunch. But I just don't see Ben going down that easily.
Well, dare I say, every time we get to see meat, sweat in the octagon, it's pretty sexy. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. So, tomato, tomato. What's sexy for me might not be for you, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I appreciate it, my man. And I'll do my very best to end it quickly. Like I said, I don't get paid by the minute.
Yes.
But Ben's pretty damn tough.
And feel free to use that in a post-fight interview. I feel like you still owe me one of those shout-outs from back in the day. You remember that deal we had?
I think I do.
Yes.
I need to shout out.
No, Mitrione minute. People know when there's a hat tip going on, so they'll recognize that. A pleasure as always, Matt. Thank you very much for the time. Congrats on the new house. Congrats on the streak as of late. Can't wait for this fight. In my opinion, one of, if not the most intriguing fight on the main card. Looking forward to it very much. Matt Mitrione versus Ben Rothwell this Saturday, Fox Sports 1 in New Orleans, as they say down there. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm the heavyweight, so I can eat normally down there.
Yes.
I'm going to take advantage of that.
Enjoy that. Great to see you as always. Thank you.
Brother, appreciate it, man.
There he is, Matt Mitrione. Speaks the truth, speaks what's on his mind. We appreciate that as always.